Hello viewer, welcome for business Form 3. I'm your teacher Margaret Wangari. You can give us your feedback through our SMS number 22518. You can also do the same on our Facebook page Erimu TV, or even through our Twitter handle Erimu_KE. So today we shall be looking at the size and location of a farm, and specifically we shall be looking at the concept of a farm and industry. But we are first going to look at our last lesson. Remember, before the end of our last lesson, I left you with some assignment which you are supposed to look at. And number one, you are supposed to explain the effects of increase in demand on equilibrium price. Effects of increase in demand on equilibrium price. Maybe I start by reminding you that on what we mean by equilibrium. Equilibrium is that point where the demand curve and the supply curve cuts each other, and it is at that point where we have the equilibrium price as well as the equilibrium quantity. So this question was requiring you to explain the effects of increase in demand on equilibrium price. So first and foremost, you're supposed to know that increase in demand shifts the demand curve to the right. Increase in demand shifts the demand curve to the right. So the effect on the equilibrium price would be that equilibrium price would increase, and this is because the equilibrium point shifts upwards to the right. So since equilibrium point shifts upward to the right, you find that the equilibrium price increases. So equilibrium price increases as a result of increase in demand. The other one, you are supposed to explain the effect of a decrease in supply on equilibrium price. Effect of a decrease in supply on equilibrium price. So first and foremost, you are supposed to ask yourself, what is the effect? What is the effect of a decrease in supply? So what the effect is that the supply curve shifts to the left. The supply curve shifts to the left. Then the equilibrium point shifts upwards, as you can see on the diagram. Equilibrium point shifts upwards to the left from E to E2, and therefore, as you can see, what is happening to the equilibrium price is that the equilibrium price is increasing. The equilibrium price is increasing. So from P1, from P to P1. So let's now look at the specific objectives for our lesson today. So before the end of the lesson, you should be able to, one, you distinguish between a farm and an industry. So you should be in a position to give the differences between the two because they are not the same. The other one, you're supposed to discuss the factors which influence the decision on what goods and services to produce. Anytime you put up a farm or an industry, you just don't produce any product. So before you settle on which product to produce, there are a number of factors that you're supposed to consider, and you should get them right. So we shall be looking at that in the course of our lesson. But let's start with the concept of a farm and an industry. So what is a farm? A farm is a single business unit or enterprise under one ownership, under one management and contract. So it's a single business unit or enterprise under one ownership, management and contract. And it is important you note that it is independently administered business organization. So it starts on its own. When we mean that it is independent, we say that it is on, we mean that it is on its own. So you find that we are saying that a farm is independent. So let's now look at the objectives of this farm. And one of the main objectives of a farm is to make profit. Remember, anytime you are doing any type of business, you don't just do business for the sake of doing it. You do business to generate some income, that is in form of profit. The other main objective of a farm is the sales maximization, and this whereby the farm aims at making the maximum sales or selling as much as possible. The other one is revenue maximization, using all avenues possible to get some revenue or some incomes. The other objective of a farm is increased market share, and you find that farms looks forward to serving as a wide market as possible. So we are talking of increased market share. The other one is improved public image, and this is how the public or the consumers think of the farm. So a farm looks forward to improving their public images, and that one is done through a number of ways. For example, you might find some farms volunteer to clean the environment for the people living around the farm. So that is one way of trying to improve the public image of the farm. A farm can also improve its public image by producing goods that are of high quality. Some farms also come in to assist the society, for example, giving scholarships to children from poor communities, and many others. Like the way we have the Equity Bank has a program called the Wings to Fly. That way, Equity Bank, you find that it actually improves its public image through such initiatives. Then the other objective of a farm is provision of goods and services to the community, providing the goods and services that are needed by the community. On the other hand, we have an industry, and an industry is made up of several farms that compete in production of the same product or service. So you find that an industry is made up of several farms. An industry is made up of several farms. But for a farm, like the way we just discussed earlier, it is owned by individuals. It is an independent business owned by individuals. An industry is now formed by more than one farm that comes together to form an industry. For example, in Kenya, in our country here, we have the sugar manufacturing industry. We have the sugar manufacturing industry, which is made up of the Mumia Sugar Company. We also have the Sone Sugar Company. We also have the Chemeril Sugar. So those three companies forms the industry. So the Mumia Sugar, Sone Sugar, and the Chemeril forms the sugar manufacturing industry. I want to believe now that you have a clearer picture of difference between a farm and an industry. I've said earlier on that anytime a number of people or individuals come together to start a farm or an industry, they have to actually settle on what to produce, and they should make sure that they are right. So there are a number of factors that has to be considered before such decisions are made, because it's bad if one may go for a product that is not benefiting, or that does not have any benefits due to a number of reasons. So we are going to look at these reasons, and we see how farms are supposed to make a decision when it comes to deciding on what goods and services to produce. Note that resources available are scarce, and every choice made has an opportunity cost. An opportunity cost is the cost that you forego. So an opportunity cost is the cost foregone. So one of the factors that you're supposed to consider is the demand patterns. So when we talk of demand patterns, it's like the way that a product is demanded. So if a commodity has a high demand, or it is demanded by majority of the consumers, you will find that that product is sold more. That product is sold more. For example, if we may take an example in our country here, you'll find that herbal products are acted. So if a farm wants to venture into business, you find that they are likely or they tend to produce more of these products. And examples of such products may include the herbal toothpaste, herbal medicines. You also have herbal soaps like the murubaini, and we also have herbal cosmetics, because you find that many consumers usually go for herbal products because of what they believe in. Some say that they don't have side effects. So if a farm is coming in to produce products, be it beauty products, they should produce more of herbal products. The other factor to consider is the government policy. And when you talk of the government policy, the government is involved with things like taxation, taxing on products. And therefore, if a farm has to venture into business of producing goods, it's good that it keeps away from products that are heavily taxed, because you find that the government may levy heavy taxes on certain products or even totally ban their production. A very good example of rate is the tax that is levied on alcohol as well as cigarettes. So farms should choose to produce products which are not affected by harsh government policies. It's also important to note that the government taxes heavily on some products as a way of discouraging the consumers from consuming such products because of the effects that it has on the health of individuals. So the government comes in and taxes that more. When a product is heavily taxed, what happens is that its price increases. And from the rule of demand, the higher the price, the lower the demand. So since a product is taxed, its price has to go up. And when the price is up, you find that many people will not be in a position to afford. The other factor to consider is the level of competition. The level of competition. And you find that farms find it better to produce commodities that have less protection, but with maximum profit. Farms find it better to produce commodities that have less protection, but with maximum profit. So you find that there are some products that when they are out there in the market, the level of competition is very, very, very high. And since it's not easier for a new farm to be able to overcome that, the farm would rather go for a product that is has less competition. So before settling on what product or service to produce, it's also good to first of all evaluate or find out or look at the level of competition of that product in the market. The other factor is the level of technology. The level of technology. And a farm is supposed to choose to produce products that it can produce easily with its level of technology. So before a farm decides on what to produce, it has to first look at its level of technology, and therefore it should not go for a good whose technology is much or is beyond their reach or is not affordable to the farm, because you find that some products can only be produced through sophisticated techniques which some farms may not afford. So a farm has to first evaluate its level of technology and find out whether it is in a position to produce that particular product. The other factor is the availability of factors of production. Availability of factors of production. Remember, we have 4 factors of production, which include land, labor, entrepreneurship, and capital. For any production to take place or for production to be effective, all the 4 factors has to be there. All the 4 factors to have to be there, because if one factor is not there, find that production may not take place at all, or it may not be as smooth as it's supposed to be. So production of goods and services must take place in the presence of all the factors of production. And when such factors are not available, find that it becomes very costly to produce goods. So before any firm settles to produce a particular product or service, it should ensure that all the 4 factors of production are present to make sure that the product or the services is produced effectively. The other factor to consider is the socio-cultural factors. The socio-cultural factors, and these are the factors that has to do with the people's beliefs and attitudes. So a firm should produce a product that goes hand in hand with the beliefs and the attitudes of the owners as well as the consumers. For example, if there are some goods that you cannot produce and expect some communities to be the customers. A good example is the pork, and this is the pig's meat. You cannot put up a butchery in a place like Somalia, because the community in Somalia is the Somali community, and you know that their beliefs does not allow them to take pork meat. Another example would be the putting up a business in a Christian community. Then you start selling alcohol. That one cannot work, because you'll find that Christian communities does not agree or their beliefs does not allow them to take alcohol. So before you set up a business, you should make sure that that the farm is what the farm is producing is being agreed with by the beliefs and the attitudes of the consumers as well as the owners. Because if owners of a company are Christians, they cannot start a business of making alcohol. The other factor to consider is the economic factors. And economic factors are factors that are concerned with the general state of the economy. And this one may include inflation, size of population, rate of wages, and tax rate. So before a firm settles on what to produce, it should find out whether the product being produced is heavily affected by inflation. Inflation, if I may remind you what inflation is whereby the price of product increases with a very big margin. So this is increase of price of products. The other one is the size of population. An area can either be sparsely populated or densely populated. Also, rate of wages, how much are the people or the consumers or the people you expect to be your consumers earning. The other one is the tax rates. So firms should choose to produce products that are least affected by these economic factors which you have just mentioned. They include inflation, size of population, rate of wages, and tax rates. The other factor you have to consider, or a firm has to consider before settling on what product or service to produce, is the profitability of the venture. The profitability of the venture. Remember, when you are looking at the objectives of a firm, one of the very first objective was profit maximization. So profit maximization should be the main objective of every firm, and therefore firms are supposed to decide to produce goods and services that generate more income, that is in form of profit than those that do not give surety on future profit. So the product to be produced must ensure that, or it must be, there must be certainty that it is going to generate in profit. And the other factor is the environmental factors. And when we talk of the environmental factors, we are referring to factors like flooding, earthquake, and all that. So farms are supposed to abandon the production of a commodity that is considered unfriendly to the environment, because you will find that when some goods are produced, the waste products are usually inorganic. So the farm should not produce such a product. So that marks the end of our lesson. Thank you so much for watching. But I'm going to review some assignment to make sure that you understand what we've already discussed. So number 1, distinguish between a farm and an industry. Distinguish between a farm and an industry. Number 2, explain how a farm is supposed to deal with the following factors when making decisions on what goods and services to produce. 1, level of competition. How is a farm supposed to deal with the level of competition? B, government policy. And number C, economic factors. Our business quote of the day. Let's now look at our business quote of the day. Our business quote of the day states that understanding the dynamics of a society is key to the future survival of a business. Keep it Elimu TV.